Hello and welcome to Conspiracize Me. Once again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and this channel is all about taking conspiracy theories, analyzing them, seeing if they have any legs to stand on, and if they have anything of note to convince me of that the conspiracy theory is in fact true. The definition I am using for a conspiracy theory is a theory asserting that a secret of great importance is being kept from the public. Alright, so the second episode I will be tackling, did America ever get to the moon? Did we in fact land on the moon? This was a huge deal for our country in terms of ingenuity, courage, in terms of just the massive feat it would take and the amount of people it would take to get a rocket out of orbit into space and landing precisely on the moon. How incredible is that for the human race to do it, let alone the United States of America, our country, to be the first to do it. A lot of people believe that we actually did not land on the moon, that it was a hoax. It was all fabricated because the time period that it happened in just happened to be a very tense time period for this country, for the world. Everyone needed a bit of a distraction, and the moon provided just that. I will be frank. I do not know if we landed on the moon. This is something that I grew up learning about, that we landed on the moon, Neil Armstrong, Apollo 13, all these amazing stories about astronauts. I'm going to be looking it up using my good friend ChatGPT and seeing what evidence there is for and, of course, against the landing on the moon, and see if I can move myself from being a 50%er, whether a yes or no, we did or we didn't, to at least 51% one way or the other. To start, let's see what ChatGPT has to say. What is the theory of the US landing on the moon? Number one, the mainstream scientific account. The moon landing happened. This is what most people believe. This is what most children are taught in school. The US landed astronauts on the moon 6 times between 1969 and 1972. Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 14, Apollo 15, Apollo 16, and Apollo 17. Hold on, there's a number missing. There's a movie called Apollo 13. I watched it when I was a kid and I didn't know what it was about. I think that's why I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. Hundreds of thousands of people worked on Apollo across government, universities, and private contractors. I would think if there's a lot of people working on this, then it'd be kind of hard to hide the fact that we faked it. Evidence includes moon rocks with isotopes not found on Earth. I mean, that's pretty clear evidence. Independent tracking by other countries, including the USSR. Modern satellite images of landing sites. Okay, in the 1960s, 1970s, there was a competitive edge here. It was a Cold War competition. What nation was going to come out on top with its technological advantage? We all want our country to be on top. Number two, the conspiracy theory. The US faked the moon landing to beat the Soviet Union in the space race. Okay, I just want to stop right here. Is it possible that the first moon landing was faked and all others were real? Is it possible that if we landed on the moon 6 times, that 5 of those times were real, it just happens to be that the first one was faked, so as to buy ourselves some time, so that we could beat, in theory, the rest of the world? Just give us some more time, we don't care. Whatever they do, they land on the moon 10 times for all we care. We got there first. That's what the world thinks. Common arguments used. The flag looks like it's waving. It wasn't. It had a horizontal support rod. No stars visible in photos. Camera exposure settings explain this. Shadows look off. Radiation from the Van Allen belts would have killed astronauts. Apparently there's some sort of radiation out there. Technology in 1969 wasn't advanced enough. Some versions go further. Filmed on a soundstage, often jokingly attributed to Stanley Kubrick. Only Apollo 11 was faked. Later missions were real. Oh, there you go. See, that was my question. The footage is real, but the landing itself wasn't. So they got close enough, and they said, good, okay, we got around the moon. Let's turn back around. We'll just shoot a clip here on Earth of you landing on the moon. I just want to say this, after reading those two, I'm not seeing the conspiracy theory making a good enough claim that we didn't land on the moon. There were multiple landings. There were thousands of people working on this. We have evidence in the form of moon rocks. And then you can see where we landed based on satellite images. And then the motivation for landing on the moon and working so hard to get there, which I would think is more motivation than we even have now, is people say, we haven't left the atmosphere, we can't get out of here, we haven't left in a while. Why is that? You had the Cold War competition. and national prestige. Why the conspiracy persists. Distrust of government. Vietnam, Watergate, etc. This government is being a little funny, so why wouldn't they be funny about the moon landing? This event feels too big and too clean to be real. I don't know if it was, but it seems off. Space is abstract. Most people can't personally verify it. And I don't think anybody really understands the magnitude of how huge space is. I mean, we may have gotten to the moon, which is a huge feat, but the moon is so close to us, we haven't scratched the surface of the surface. But hey, with Elon Musk wanting to get to Mars, that would be huge. That would be super huge. Anyway, the fact that he's catching his own rockets, that's huge enough. That's amazing. And that's happening here on Earth. I think we still have so much to do here on Earth. I mean, just think about the ocean. I think I heard it said that we know more about space than we do about our own ocean. And it's right here on this planet. The conspiracy isn't really about the moon. It's about who gets to define reality. Is it possible that the government is capable of tricking a mass amount of people to the degree that we can all believe something that seems like a stretch, like a wild stretch of the imagination? This conspiracy for the moon is more so, can the government really have the power to just hypnotize us all into believing a thing? The moon landings are among the best documented human achievements ever. There's so much documentation on the moon landing that it cannot be faked. Faking them would have required a conspiracy larger and more perfect than actually going to the moon. If this is all faked, this is a masterful piece of fakery. You should be proud of the fact that your government can fake people to this level. Man, if we could do this to our own people, what can we do to the world? I think that's called propaganda. Every technical objection raised has been answered, often decades ago. Apparently there's answers for all of your questions. I want to know what's documented. What documentation proves that the moon landing was real? The moon landing isn't proven by one document. It's proven by a stack of independent records that all agree. I don't think it's far-fetched to think that all of these people working on the same thing could have been on the same page. If you're going to trick the nation, then of course you got to all be on the same page. Created by different people, agencies, and even rival nations. Okay, that's important. So you can have the US government, you can say the United States government is trying to trick its people and trying to trick the world. But do you really believe that other world governments can come together and say, we want to trick our people too, and thereby trick the entire world together? And back then you have rivalries trying to, especially with the national prestige and the Cold War competition, trying to be the first to get that technological advance. Even today you've got the world trying to get a technological advance when it comes to AI. They're wanting to be the first to get there. So when it comes to the documentation, Apollo mission reports, thousands of pages per mission, flight plans, timelines and contingency procedures, telemetry logs showing real-time spacecraft data, altitude, velocity, fuel, life support, voice transcripts between astronauts and mission control, minute by minute. These are real-time facts. As the mission is going on, everything's being documented. The world is watching. Nations are watching. These documents were written before, during, and immediately after the missions. Many were classified at the time and later declassified. They contain errors, confusion, corrections, exactly what real operations look like. When you have something that's going on live, it's not manipulated, cleaned up, it's happening real time, and included in that real time documentation, it's the human error. Number 2, independent tracking records. This is one of the strongest categories. The Apollo spacecraft were tracked by NASA, universities, observatories, and foreign governments. The Soviet Union tracked Apollo missions independently and never claimed they were fake. The USSR had every incentive to expose a hoax. What if America hoaxed the USSR? They believe, just as the people do, that this is possible when it really isn't. Maybe they didn't even think to call it a hoax. Maybe we wouldn't have thought to call it a hoax if they went. A fake moon landing would require your biggest enemy to lie for you. The way that you prevent them saying it's a hoax is you convince them that it's real. I think it's possible that you can convince your enemy that you could do something that you really can't. Number 3, physical documentation of moon rocks. 842 pounds of lunar samples, cataloged and distributed to labs worldwide, studied by geologists who had no connection to NASA. We don't even work for NASA. We don't get paid to lie. We just get paid to study these things. And these rocks, they're unlike anything we've ever seen on this earth. Well, what if you went deep enough into the earth and carved out some rock that no one's ever seen or touched and then brought it to these labs? You think they might say, this is new, this is different? Well, maybe because you never went deep enough. into the Earth. Aren't there different types of rocks inside of the Earth's crust? The rocks have properties that cannot form naturally on Earth. Faking them would require faking an entire branch of geology. Retroreflector documentation still in use today. Documentation includes installation records, calibration logs, ongoing measurements from Earth-based observatories. Today, scientists fire lasers at the moon. The reflectors bounce light back. The moon is essentially reflecting the light from the sun. So how is it that we place reflectors on the moon when the moon is literally a big ball of reflection? This measures Earth-moon distance to millimeter precision. They had to be placed on the moon's surface by humans or robots. No robotic mission at the time could do this with that precision. How many reflectors are out there? How big are these reflectors? The fact that we can shoot them with a laser from this distance, I don't know, if it's huge, then they lifted this big thing all by themselves with no robotic help? Photographic and film documentation. NASA released the raw data, not just highlights. Independent analysts have reconstructed camera positions and sun angles. A studio fake collapses under geometric analysis. These images don't. Apparently, there's enough evidence based on photography. Contractor and industrial documentation. Apollo wasn't one company, it was 20,000 plus companies and universities. Documentation includes engineering specs, manufacturing records, test failures and redesigns, payrolls, invoices, and audits. You'd need silence from hundreds of thousands of engineers, machinists, and scientists over multiple generations with zero whistleblowers providing evidence. Has there not been a whistleblower on the moon landing? Long after Apollo ended, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, photographed landing sites, footpaths, equipment left behind. These images match Apollo mission maps and logs. Okay, but let's just say all of this is true. Is it possible that at least you can give the conspiracy theorists something? You can give them a win somewhere by saying, okay, the first one we had to fake it because we needed to buy ourselves some time and just say that we went, and then we could actually go. Is it possible? The moon landing is documented by paper, audio, film, physics, geology, enemy verification, ongoing experiments. So we can't just give you a definitive document that says and shows you and convinces you that we went, but you need all of this put together. And the more evidence and the more witnesses in these different forms pointing to this one event, or multiple events apparently that we went multiple times, proves and shows that we went. A hoax would require perfect agreement across disciplines that don't trust each other. That's harder than going to the moon. Okay, question. How big were the retroreflectors? Has there been a moon landing whistleblower? And is it at least possible that the US faked the first landing so as to buy time to get there for real? How big were the lunar retroreflectors? They were not big, which is actually part of why they're persuasive evidence. Roughly 2 feet wide, contained 100 to 300 corner cube prisms. This is something that has multiple sides to it that you can shoot a laser at and it points in different directions. From Earth, scientists fire a laser beam that spreads to several kilometers wide by the time it reaches the moon. Only a tiny fraction of photons hit the reflector. Only a handful return to Earth and are detected. That return signal is far stronger than random lunar surface reflection. So you have the moon that can reflect, but if you put a retroreflector on the moon, then it actually has more minute response, a more tailored and detailed response. When it comes back to you, we have a more targeted analysis of what's coming back. That's what this seems to be saying. Has there ever been a moon landing whistleblower? Short answer, no credible whistleblower. Okay, so there has been, but not a credible one. Is it like the janitor saying, I saw something, pay me and I'll tell you? Around 400,000 people worked on Apollo. Many were young engineers, contractors with no lifelong loyalty to NASA, and people who later became outspoken critics of government, but not outspoken critics of landing on the moon. It's the way that they handle other things. The moon was real. There have been people who claimed it was fake, like Bart Sibrel, a journalist, and Bill Casing, former Rocketdyne employee. But critically, they were not mission insiders. They didn't know what they were talking about. I guess if you want to get paid, I mean, look, there's a money aspect here too. If you want to get paid, right, you'll say, yeah, I know a little bit. I know a little something. I know a little something. If you want to get notoriety, whatever, hey, look, I know what they were doing. And it's a lot different from what you and I think that they did, what they told us. Let me tell you what really happened. But as it turns out, they were not mission insiders. They misunderstood basic engineering. Their claims collapse under technical scrutiny. Whatever they said was debunked. If other countries are not even, they don't even care. Look, this happened. Just move on with your lives. But our own citizens of the country that went to the moon, they're saying, nah, our government can't do that. They haven't done anything like this ever. They can't do. What do you think? Something can't happen the first time? Somebody else has to do it for us to copy and do it, and then what? Okay, we did it, but we weren't. We can't be the first. This is what I really want to know. Let's just say it happened. Okay, but did we fake the first one? In theory, yes. Logically possible. If you're not a conspiracy theorist and you're listening to conspiracy theorists and you have an open mind and saying, let me hear you out. Okay, look, I can grant you this. Humans can fake things. Governments lie. And the Cold War created incentives. We can all believe that. Here's where it breaks. Number one, the Soviets. They tracked Apollo independently. They monitored radio signals and trajectories. They congratulated the US, and they were watching closely to make sure that it was happening. If Apollo 11 was fake, the USSR either failed to notice, unlikely, or noticed and chose silence, borderline absurd. Maybe the US had something on the USSR that if, hey, you guys say anything about us faking this moon landing, we're going to throw all of your crap out, and your people are going to know about you. Is it possible that governments have dirt on each other? Apollo 11's data is continuous from launch to lunar orbit to landing to return, so faking the flight would have been harder than actually making the flight. So why spend all of your time trying to fake it when it's easier to make it? If Apollo 11 was fake, why send 5 more missions? Okay, if you faked it once, why can't you just fake it again? The assumption they couldn't do it yet is hindsight bias. Let's say we have better technology. Do we have better collaboration? If 400,000 people were to come together today, this day and age, could we actually work together better than they were working together? The big proof that the first landing was not a lie is that the other 5 landings looked and felt exactly the same. That the documentation that followed after the first landing looked like the documentation that followed for the rest. Or if it was faked so well as to have foresight into how a real mission would go. It would have looked too clean if they faked it. But the real ones looked and felt like the fake one. Therefore, there's no way that they could have faked the first one because it was too real. Skepticism here is healthy, but at some point skepticism has to turn inward and ask, what theory actually requires fewer miracles? If you're relying on miracles, then the real miracle would have been faking it because of all the documentation that went into it. I think that's the punch. I think that's the reality check that we all need, conspiracy theorists alike. It couldn't have been faked so precisely because that would have required miracles upon miracles upon miracles, and the government doesn't work miracles. Was there anything different about the first landing from the other 5? Apollo 11's job was simple and brutal. Land, don't die, get back. Because it was first, they minimized surface time, they minimized experiments, they minimized risk. Surface time comparison, Apollo 11, about 2.5 hours on the moon. Later missions, 1 to 3 days total surface stay. That alone explains fewer photos, less dramatic footage, more caution and movement. Number 2, they landed manually under real-time stress. This is a huge difference. The computer began taking Apollo 11 toward a boulder field. Neil Armstrong took manual control, landed with around 20 to 30 seconds of fuel left. That is insane. Later missions trusted the landing computer more, landed in safer, pre-characterized sites, had better procedures. That's why Apollo 11 audio sounds tense and sparse, because it was. Later missions, rovers 15, 16, and 17 had rovers, deeper drilling, larger sample returns, more confident movement. If Apollo 11 were staged, it would likely be the most impressive visually. Instead, it's the most conservative. Primitive by design camera setup. This matters more than people realize. Apollo 11 had one main TV camera, black and white, low bandwidth, mounted awkwardly on the lunar module. Later missions, color cameras, better angles, tripods, and pan tilt units, higher quality transmission. So the famous fuzzy footage is not suspicious, it's exactly what early bandwidth limited tech produces. Another subtle but important difference. Apollo 11 astronauts move carefully, speak minimally, follow checklists rigidly, show restrained emotion. Later crews joke, experiment, take risks, act more relaxed. We've done this before, we know we're safe. Why? Apollo 11 didn't yet know if something catastrophic might still happen. Every step was unknown territory. Yo, we're actually here. We actually made it to space. We actually got out of the vehicle. We're actually walking on matter. That psychological shift shows up clearly in transcripts. Documentation density is actually higher. Apollo 11 has more procedural checklists, more contingency planning, more conservative decision trees. First missions are over-documented because failure would end the program. Every move must be justified. That's the opposite of a rushed hoax. Less so in future missions. That's because the first one had to go so well, because if it didn't go well, it was going to stop any other future missions. This is too risky. This is too much. Y'all didn't figure it out. You cost us some astronauts. You cost us a lot of money. I don't think this is worth it yet. Let the USSR figure this out for themselves. We're done. We're done. We're shutting it down. But they did it. And they did it to a T. They followed the rule book, and everyone was cautiously happy. A staged event would optimize for spectacle. Apollo 11 optimized for survival. I was 50-50 when I started this. I have not been conspiracized to believe that we did not land on the moon. I actually now more believe that we did land on the moon. All right, but the last thing I do want to see is what happened to Apollo 13. Apollo 13 is the mission that proved the moon landings were real because nothing about it looks scripted, tidy, or politically convenient. Launched April 11, 1970 mission, third planned lunar landing crew, Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes. Everything was routine for the first 2 days. About 56 hours into the mission, an oxygen tank in the service module exploded. Cause: damaged wiring from a manufacturing flaw years earlier. The explosion, venting oxygen into space, it killed 2 fuel cells, cut power and water production. The command module was now unlivable. The crew suddenly faced loss of electrical power, loss of oxygen, rising carbon dioxide, limited water, no ability to land on the moon. The landing was aborted. Mission control and the crew made a radical call. Power down the command module completely, use the lunar module as a lifeboat. The lunar module was designed for 2 people for about 2 days. Now it had to support 3 people for around 4 days. Nothing about this was in the playbook. This is where Apollo 13 becomes legendary. Engineers on Earth built a solution using duct tape, plastic bags, cardboard. The crew assembled it in space. They slingshotted around the moon, used its gravity to send them home. Course corrections were done with minimal power, manual burns, star and Earth alignment by eye. Temperatures dropped near freezing. Crew was severely dehydrated. Hayes developed a urinary tract infection. The service module was jettisoned, revealing massive external damage. The command module was powered back up at the last possible moment. Re-entry was tense due to unknown heat shield condition. On April 17, 1970, Apollo 13 splashed down safely. This is almost more incredible than actually landing on the moon. Talk about miracles. And if the moon landings were staged, Apollo 13 makes no sense. It was a public failure during the Cold War. It showed hardware flaws, human error, near catastrophe, hoaxes, minimized risk, and embarrassment. Apollo 13 did the opposite. Apollo 13 didn't land on the moon, but it cemented the credibility of the entire Apollo program. It showed the technology was real, the danger was real, the people were improvising in real time, just like Neil Armstrong improvised the first landing on Apollo 11. I am satisfied. Apollo 11 was real. Apollo 13 was crazy and dramatic and real. And I think where we are today is trying to get to Mars. That is the big question going on now. I personally would love to see more of the ocean and see more investigations being sent into the ocean successfully. But am I going to volunteer to go? No way. No way. I don't even want to dive. I don't want to free dive. I don't want to scuba dive. I don't want to dive off of a diving board. That's just not me. I don't really like water. That is to say, nor do I want to be sent to space. But if you asked me the question, would you rather go to space or would you rather go into the ocean? I'd rather go to space. Ask yourself that question. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of Conspiracize Me. Once again, I have not been conspiracized. I do believe that all of them were in fact real. And for my next video, we are going to be discussing aliens, UFOs, and what exactly is happening with not us going into space, but space coming to us. Thanks for watching.